Florida. I wish you would be here together with our beautiful people around us. In a few minutes, we're going to tackle a very important subject, which is about the controversy of small LDL and triglycerides and how you can test this. Because it's only a specific test called NMR. So hang in there. Live from Ave Maria, Florida. We're back here again with some beautiful people around us. We're going to tackle the issue of why there is a need for testing particular tests like the particles of the lipid. It's frustrating, really, for people, especially my friend from Tampa. He's a doctor. Unfortunately, he is not not unfortunate. He is a pathologist. So he cannot prescribe it on his own. He has to depend from his primary care doctor. And I keep on telling him, well, a mutual friend, who is a gastroenterologist, did he have a heart attack or no? But he had a bypass surgery because he had accumulated plaque. But had it been known, had it been prevented, what causes the plaque? It's the bad cholesterol, triglyceride, and the small LDL. So let's define this. The cholesterol or the lipid, you will be reported a total cholesterol. That doesn't matter. And please don't get the debate that another doctor will prescribe you statin just because on the basis of total cholesterol. You have to understand how the particles of this cholesterol is reported. HDL, your friend, is the good cholesterol that would scavenge. I was not so smart in medical school, I have to tell you, but the only thing, the concept that really got into my mind was that HDL, the good cholesterol, is like the police. It scavenges, takes away the bad cholesterol running around the lumen of the blood vessels, so that it will dump it to the liver and recycle it again as a cholesterol. Because cholesterol is our friend, really. It is used to produce hormone, also the different parts of the body. It supports that. Then the question then is that, why do we eliminate total cholesterol, like annihilate like a time bomb with a statin? Because it's a powerful drug, especially those PCSK medication. Well, you need cholesterol, for example, to develop myelin sheath. This is the sheath that is important in the transmission of information of the myelin, the nerve endings of the nerve. Well, if you don't have a myelin sheath, there's no transmission of information. And clinically, that's what you call memory loss, cognitive decline, or worse, dementia. That's why in 2006, in early 2000s, they already have reported studies of memory loss associated with statin. And that's probably the mechanism why statin predisposes that. The disadvantage of statin also is that it can fuel insulin resistance. We talk about this all the time. Insulin resistance is the state where you might have enough insulin in your body, but it's lazy. It's not working to open up the gates for the glucose to go in, because you need the glucose inside the cell to produce energy. So if you have insulin resistance as defined by, which is correlated to elevated small LDL or small particles of the lipid and the triglycerides, those are telltale signs of insulin resistance. So then, again, why is there a need to test or look for the particles? There's so many novel testing. Oxidized LDL, which is not, which can help, but you can also test the ApoB. But the core of lipid testing is really the particles, the small LDL and triglyceride. Why? What is the relevance of small LDL, the small particles, and the triglyceride? These are these are the substances or the particles of the lipid that is so inflammatory. Triglycerides, for example. If the triglycerides gets dumped to the liver, that triglyceride, which is unfortunately blamed onto fatty food, is inflammatory to the liver, meaning it can cause non-alcoholic liver fatty disease. Way back in the early, well, during in my medical school in pathology, there was only one lesion that's a cause of fatty liver disease. It used to be just alcohol. Oh, fatty liver disease, easy to answer. What's the cause? Alcohol. Moving forward, they have found out that even kids have fatty liver disease. The culprit, it's fructose, it's the sugar. Where is the fructose coming from? Fruit juice. 1 cup like this could be maybe 3 fruits that is without fiber, and that concentrated fruit juice is an overdose. It's a natural drink, but it's an overdose of a drink that you're not supposed to be doing. Now, the fructose is handled differently. It has no storage form. It's not like glucose that become stored as glycogen, that during the night you can break down the glycogen, the stored form, so that you can have food or you have fuel through the night, that you will not die through the night. God is so wise. He designed it so well. But the fructose from the fruit is supposedly eaten as a whole with the fiber. Just like what we're talking about, I think you missed the fibers for the making of the what do you call this? The sprouts. You need fiber to slow down the absorption of glucose in your system. So what will happen? What the pathway of this? I drink my meat or a cookie. There's nothing wrong with eating cookie, especially if it's made by my daughter. Come on in, please. So what's the destiny of the rice, the pasta, the white potatoes, or the bread? It's easily absorbed. It's easily absorbed in the system. Then the pancreas, the organ near the first part of the intestine called the duodenum, stimulates, the sugar is stimulated to produce a, what do you call this? Insulin. Insulin sort of reacts to the presence of glucose. The faster you form glucose from a refined carbohydrates or, for example, fruit juice, then the insulin is spiked up to allow the entry of the glucose into the cell to be properly utilized. However, if you have excess of glucose, insulin spikes up. What is the immediate effect? It will increase the production of fat in here. Barriga in Spanish, or visceral fat. Let's make it that way. That is the reason why the health marker, the only health marker of the body regarding metabolism, is not weight. It is this one here. Hold your breath. It's not my decision to define the measurement. For women, in general, less than 35 inches. If you make a measurement in the hip right here, make a parallel line to the floor, that is the proper way of checking. For men in general, if it's Caucasian, I don't like this measurement because it's a little big. 40 inches. It should be lower than that, 38. But if you are a Caucasian, if you're a Hispanic man, it should be less than 35. For women, in general, it has to be less than 30. So it's not the weight, it's the waistline, because that's where the fat is deposited here. And what triggers that is insulin indirectly from refined carbohydrates, no other. Also, no, not no other, one of them. But the biggest is the refined carbohydrates. like the source would be rice, pasta, bread, white potato, grains, sweet, like any sweet, for example, drink. Take, for example, Gatorade. It has sugar on it. High fructose corn syrup, the worst. A lot of times it's lumped up as the processed food or processed drink. Water is fine if you do lemonade and honey, but don't put high fructose corn syrup because that accumulates. Anything that's sweet, definitely that there's something high fructose corn syrup in there. So that accumulates, stimulates the fat. Not only stimulates the production of fat, it increases the size of the fat cells. So let's put that aside. So when you check your cholesterol, request for NMR, lipid profile, or N, MR, nuclear magnetic resonance determination of the fat. In LabCorp, it's called NMR. In Quest, it's called cardio IQ. But there are many reasons why they won't check that because the insurance won't pay. And I noticed in the university insurance, they would ask the co-payer or the patient at least 320 or something like that. But here, we have a special price. I cannot divulge it here. So it is a must that you ask for that because a doctor who is concerned about your health cannot really make decisions if you don't have that information. You can have the hemoglobin A1C, but it will just give you some estimate. But this is particularly objective. Now, what's the story? The particles of the small LDL and the triglycerides, as I said, are inflammatory. So the blood vessels are lined like this, and there's some kind of sieve where these particles can move in beneath the intima of the layer of the blood vessels. And thus, as it deposits here, it becomes a plaque. This becomes a plaque, but hold your breath. There's nothing wrong with accumulation here. It's only when you have sympathetic overactivity, like when you're acutely angry, or you have some acute viral infection, or when you eat a lot of sugar or some inflammatory food, like there's been actually highly processed food and also a fried food. And you can name a brand where you can have those package of a processed food in a bun and a fried sides. Take your pick. It was studied that the inflammatory markers that would cause cancer or acute events like interleukin 1, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor acutely increases. It is enough to trigger really a heart attack and stroke. There's no documented where you eat this particular brand and then you have heart attack and stroke. Just wait. Your triglyceride goes up and sometimes it can precipitate acute pancreatitis, a very painful disease. You have acute pancreatitis, then you definitely would have to be hospitalized usually because of the pain management. So small LDL triglyceride has to be identified. Unfortunately, the usual mainstream doctors would just look at a checkbox. Your total cholesterol is up, statin is prescribed. HDL is low, they find some drug. Unfortunately, there's no drug that would increase your HDL. It's only exercise, oily fish, not the fish that's white, that is deep fried, but the oily fish is a salmon, which is the wild caught, because the salmon that's wild caught eats the algae, which is omega-3. So if you're using the farm salmon or fish, you're not eating anything. There's no omega-3 there. So it has to be that. Sardines, mackerel, but make sure you know the source because you also have contamination of some trace minerals. So These are taken into consideration. What other vegetations that you can eat with omega-3, for example, that increases HDL? Avocado, which is a good. So if only Ave Maria would allow one avocado tree per family, that would be awesome. Maybe a couple. Flaxseed has that. Um, so those, to name a few, omega-3 is your friend. Or the best would be extra virgin olive oil from a good source. Be careful, because there was a newspaper online that featured barrels of golden yellow looking liquid that was sold as extra virgin olive oil. Turns out it was nothing. We didn't even know. It was not petroleum, it was nothing. So you have to know where your source is. So extra virgin olive oil. Why did I mention that? Because people would say, do not take extra virgin olive oil because it's fat. Well, the reality is that the main source of triglyceride and small LDL is the refined carbohydrates. Bread, pasta. What did I say again? The grains, white potatoes. The sweet potatoes has more fiber, they said, and especially if you steam it and you put it in the refrigerator, it also changes the configuration of the carbohydrates. It becomes like a complex starch that is difficult. I mean, it has a slow release of glucose. The glucose is the culprit. So, knowing this concept, there is really no need to take statin when you have drugs, or when you have this profile of low HDL, high triglyceride, and high small LDL. Take, for example, one case, 21-year-old student, very lean, admits to no vegetables, eats pretty much anything that's sweet. She was not obese. Checked her blood work. Oh, her complaint was low energy, lack of sleep, and all those good stuff from the we call them the Gen Z. The Gen Z. So I took the blood work, NMR. Sure enough, 1,500 small LDL. HDL was low at 30s. Triglyceride was like 300.
Wow.
This is a young woman. If you take care of this, the chocolates and all the chocolate bars and the ice cream and the smoothie. Another physician who came in, my friend, who had been maintained with statin drugs and blood pressure medicine, and the same profile, small LDL was up, HDL was low, triglyceride was high. The only difference is that he has high blood pressure. What is the reason behind the high blood pressure? Well, the sugar stimulates the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands release norepinephrine and epinephrine that really constricts the blood vessels from the brain there, including the kidney. That would stimulate substance, activate the renin-angiotensin system, and also constrict that produce high blood pressure. So if you go back, blood pressure is a problem connected to the blood sugar. And the reason for the blood pressure is because of the sugar. Eliminate the source of sugar, which is diet first, and then most likely this will correct in itself. And I've seen that many times. And one patient of mine here who challenged me that I want to do it in 1 month. Sure enough, I saw it because I said, no, I cannot do it because your insurance will not pay. I will pay because it was only like less than 100 for the NMR. He proved it. He eliminated everything. Wine, because it's sweet, because he likes sweet wine. He eliminated everything with the pasta, the bread, the crackers, and all those stuff. Well, the second layer for that is that, yes, I eat clean. The other important cause of triglyceride or increase in sugar is stress. Acute stress is okay. It's just like when you see an alligator, your cortisol goes up because you need the sugar to the muscles, to the brain to run. But it's if it's every day, if it's everyday chronic stress, cortisol level is up. That cortisol level is the one that causes the bulging of your viscera. Why? Because insulin is going up every day, every hour maybe, increasing the number of cells of your visceral fat and increasing the size and number of the visceral fat. But if you correct that, if you change your diet, control your stress, that will correct. However, how do you correct or manage your stress? Of course, according to St. Francis de Sales, who handled the stress or the anxiety of St. Francis de Chantal, he said the first thing you need to do with stress is to know what you're stressed about. If you are if your relationship is not doing well, mend it. Second, if you're taking care of somebody, well, if you cannot handle it physically, then you need to have somebody to help you. If you're a student who's preparing for exam or a PhD, then prepare. Don't cram. That's what he said because he was teaching also students. But the most important thing, the highest evidence of scientific evidence to handle stress, meaning decrease the cortisol level, is not exercise, it's not diet, it's not sauna, which actually improves, but guided breathing. You don't need, well, there are two components of meditation. We all go to the adoration, we sit down there. Yeah, we fulfill our devotion to the adoration, and it's great. But I think we need to add the guided breathing. And I just talked to another priest who I like because he agreed with what I did. I said, "Do you do meditation, Father, or guided breathing?" Yeah, I do. I do the breath prayer, which you are familiar with, that I have been teaching. The breath prayer is essentially this: you breathe in, inhale, 4, you hold 4, exhale 6 or more. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6 or 8, and hold. What is the reason for this? Because when you inhale, your heart rate goes up. When you exhale, your heart rate goes down and your system is calm, including the microbiome, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So when you have heart rate going up and down or variation in relation to your respiration, that's what you call heart rate variability. The higher variation or the higher heart rate variability is correlated to parasympathetic tone or increased vagal tone. Well, let me introduce to you the vagal tone, which is the nerve supply of the autonomic nervous system, which reacts automatically. You smell something, it reminds you of trauma, boom, you get tachycardia. Well, the heart rate variability, if it's low, if you're not breathing deep in and out, then your heart rate variability is low. That would definitely be correlated to sympathetic tone, which is equivalent to fight flight. That is equivalent to increased cortisol, increased sugar, increased blood pressure, and many different things, increased inflammation. You would think stress would not cause cancer. I would say yes, it does. Do you think chronic stress cannot cause susceptibility to simple infection? Yes, it does, because it lowers the immunity. The chronic stress is correlated also to development of autoimmune disease. As I have discovered, I have explained many times that it's related to the leaky gut. Your gut leaks and your dysbiosis, and this is a scenario for entry of foreign proteins. Remember, if you have one substance that's allergic, your body is allergic to one, most likely you're allergic to many because it opens up the gate and allows entry. Autoimmune disease, for example, is exemplified by the entry of the bacteria called Yersinia, which has the same molecular configuration of the thyroid. They are connected. Now, when you have reminder of a stress, if you notice you have this squeezy feeling in your stomach, or even just, that guy reminds me of something. I need to fly. I don't need to engage. That's the vagal tone. That's the gut feeling that is innervated by the vagus nerve and is responds right away automatically. It is important to tone the vagus nerve, just like when you're flexing your muscles, you do it every day. And as I've said to my patients who I have identified that has high sympathetic tone or high anxiety level, breathing 4 times a day makes sense because the circadian rhythm is that there's increased cortisol level midnight to 4 o'clock. So then the cortisol needs to decrease when you wake up. So you do the guided breathing at least 20 times. At noontime, why? Because there's a lot of stress from morning to 12. That's just part of life. And then by noontime, you also have this 2 to 3 o'clock crash. Like, and also before you go to bed, you have to reset again your sympathetic tone to be able to reset your brain so that the brain is calm so that you can sleep better. I have a friend who says, yes, I've done everything before, lit down my light, but I watch war movies or anything. That would not help. And he knew, he knows that what it is. Besides, the LED light, the light from the TV, can definitely affect you. When you're doing guided breathing, it helps increase your melatonin to set you up for sleep. But if you lower it down by light entry into the retina, then the melatonin that has accumulated through the day will be equivalent to nothing. Then you have no other choice but to supplement yourself with melatonin, at least 3 milligrams. So the guided breathing would also increase your GABA, which calms the brain, would also increase the taurine that calms the brain. Serotonin, which is the happy pill, the happy neurotransmitter, also decreases. So at night, you can actually keep yourself calm. The examination of conscience that we practice or encourage by our spiritual director is so very important. Why is that? Guilt through the day, before you go to bed, is always say, oh, reconcile with people before you go to bed. Because your sympathetic tone decreases when you do this. Forgiveness to yourself, to God, and even thanking, gratitude at the end of the day has been shown in functional MRI that it lifts up the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, which is related to happiness and joy and memory. So your brain becomes more in the positive side. So these mechanisms, examination of conscience, at the end of the day, pacifies your mind and also your soul. I don't know about you, but when I commit sin, I have this palpitation that I cannot share with, of course, the cause. What are the things that can help? A little bit of alcohol relaxes. Not too much, but a little bit. Because alcohol in itself, in excess, can also stimulate the triglycerides. That's why when you drink a lot of alcohol before you go to bed at night, can sometimes precipitate acute pancreatitis. In the Philippines, it's called a bangungot, yes. Or it's very common, a clinical phenomenon. So these things, or sauna, can decrease the sympathetic tone. But the most important thing, the highest clinical evidence is guided breathing. Now, how much more if you combine the guided breathing to mindfulness? The other component of meditation, mindfulness, which is in the Eastern world, they would do staring at the candlelight. Well, we have Catholic to stare at the Blessed Sacrament. If your mind gets out, go back again, just talk to Jesus about what you think. And I think Father McManus told me the best what do you call this, lesson. He said, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. That's first thing you need to do. Second, ask the Holy Spirit what the Holy Spirit wants you to pray about. Because a lot of times it's all about us. I want to pray about this. Well, maybe you have to consult the Holy Spirit for guidance. It works. And then, of course, I always told before, yeah, you have to do the unconditional love meditation through His passion meditation. But sometimes it's difficult to bear through the passion of Jesus. Well, what about your passion? Your passion, family. Don't go beyond the walls of your house. Think about what you're suffering through the day, or your, what do you call this, the happiness of the day, that you want to talk about Jesus. Just like me this morning. Oh, I have this list of things that bothered me. I call my friend. How much more for Jesus? No? And he responds. He would say, "Oh yeah, I have these things happening through my day." It's worth doing it, because I had this friend, actually, my patient told me, should I have this habit in Del Web? She would say, "Oh, I just want to make sure that I text my friend." But God forbid, he probably did not wake up that day. It would be so bad that you went through the day and your friend is lying down on the floor and you don't know, oh yeah, I just presume. Always get the connection, human connection, because it also pays off. It helps increases oxytocin, which is increasing in your bonding. It's the same hormone that is increased when the baby sucks the nipple of the mother to feed. It helps connection with relationship, hugging, saying hello, text, how are you doing? But of course, if the relationship becomes toxic, define your borders. You have to define your borders to keep your environment calm. And the best thing to do is always go back to Him. I have this resolution, actually, that I shared with Father Richard. Father Richard, he's from Uganda. The other day he shared his experience. There was a priest who was his formator, I think, one of the teachers in his seminary, who would go to the farm of the seminary because he loves the cow. Every little bit of what do you call this? Were you there?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So every time he has a free time, he goes there, and because he loves the cow. So because what was his point was that, but I correlated that. If you have time, then if you go back again, he will recognize his voice. So imagine if you go to Jesus and you go to Him every day without even telling Jesus, He knows already what you're going to. Okay, here you're back again. So my point is that strengthening relationship with family and friends has a benefit mentally and physically. And how much more for the benefit of increasing our relationship with Jesus through meditation. Because saints would say, if you cannot know, you will never, you would know Jesus more if you know His passion and relate your passion to Him. My spiritual director already has blamed me, has already labeled me. You sound like a what do you call this? What do you call the evangelist? the Christian evangelist. I said, no, I don't care. It's part of my medicine, because really, medicine and faith is related. So I think we're at we just passed the 2:30 mark. So to wrap it up, in conclusion, testing the sugar or testing the cholesterol, the particles, is very important. The source of sugar are as follows: sugar, high fructose corn syrup, bread, pasta, refined carbohydrates, and stress. That's how we get into meditation. So diet, exercise, sauna, those are good. Guided meditation, highest evidence, and our guided breathing and meditation helps. So we cannot ignore the practice of our Christian faith, fasting, corporal mortification, and meditation to be healthy. But you cannot understand all these things unless you test it properly. So don't give up. Ask your doctor, NMR, so that you will have an idea on the state of your inflammation and the levels of your particles that would cause you harm. For now, we're going to entertain some questions. So far, there's nobody from the... Oh, Les. Les, thank you very much. Arthur Camacho is watching, so thank you. If you have any questions, Arthur, please just let me know. He's in New York, and Les is in Germany. So We have a good day here in Ave Maria, so I invite you here sometime. Do you have any questions from the audience? Yes.
Is there a cholesterol that's too high? So let's say your triglycerides are fine and your LDL's fine, because it used to be, I think, 300 seemed normal. Then with the advent of statins, there was medical reasons to shift that to 200. So do you get concerned about that at all?
So I don't really pay attention to the total cholesterol. I pay attention to the HDL, make sure it's above. For men, it's usually above 50 or 60. Triglyceride has to be less than 150, and small LDL less than 500. Triglyceride, in effect, also, you better pay attention, because if your triglyceride baseline is above 500, that's another pathology. Do not ever drink alcohol, because that can shoot up. I've seen it, 22,000. The guy went to Cancun, patient in St. Louis. He was lucky that he did not develop acute pancreatitis, because if you have a baseline triglyceride above 500, do you drink alcohol, it shoots up right away. So, and it's very inflammatory. It can scar your pancreas.
So, follow-up question.
Yeah.
On the fructose side, all fruits have fructose in it.
Yes, the fruit, I think that's the reason why fructose is called fructose, to connect it with fructus ventris tui, so the fruit of your womb, Jesus. It's easy to understand, easy to correct. But any sugar from the fruit is fructose. But fructose in itself is not bad, as long as it's packaged in the fiber. But don't overdo it. Make sure it's just 1 or 2 servings of fruit whole. Could you please explain again the NMR test? I missed that. Yes, Arthur, just for you. Arthur is my friend from Cebu, Philippines, but now he's in New York. So the usual test is this: total cholesterol, triglyceride, which is bad cholesterol, and HDL, which is a good cholesterol. That's it. And you have LDL, the bad cholesterol, supposedly. Let's take the HDL aside. Those are good cholesterol. Let's take triglyceride, which is a bad cholesterol that is usually from, hold your breath, refined carbohydrates, which is exemplified by rice, bread, pasta, white potatoes, sugared drinks, processed food, which has a lot of what do you call this? High fructose corn syrup. So those are the sources. Again, there's another subset of source: stress, chronic stress, which increases your cortisol. So if you are just getting the report from your doctor of total cholesterol, HDL and LDL, and reported as total LDL, then you would not really know exactly what type of particle there is there. You have the triglyceride. But the small LDL is critical, because you might have the total LDL, the bad cholesterol, labeled, and it might have been predominantly a large LDL, or the large particle of LDL. That LDL, that's large particle, has no bearing in terms of inflammation. It will not go inside the intima, or the lining of the blood vessel, to cause plaque. It is the small LDL, and it can only be reported in NMR, or nuclear magnetic resonance. Arthur, if you were here, I would write a prescription, and you go to the LabCorp, and if it's billed to Cadenza, and you will save money, because the pricing here is very different compared to other facilities. So I hope that explains that. Thumbs up, love, Arthur. You have any questions?
I have 2 questions.
Yes,
Okay?
please. Yes.
Okay. So if you don't have control of the situation with relationships in your family,
Mhm.
but that's chronic stress, because you want it to be,
Yes.
so mainly with children's and
Yes.
Asking for a friend.
yeah, I'm asking for a friend.
So the question here is chronic stress from relationship.
From relationships.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
I just read an article from Fox News that Gen Z, the generation behind the millennial, 60% have been identified to cut off friends and family.
Yes.
Is that our problem? That is their problem. one good psychologist who actually had a good word for this. If you have this situation, do not drop your knee and climb on what you crawl onto the Gen Z who is cutting you off. Keep your dignity. Stand up. Let them go after you, because one there's got to be a way. There's got to be some time that they will go after you and find what you are. Salamat, of course. Salamat. Opo. So, hey, Arthur, we have to chat sometime face to face. So that is the wisdom of the professionals. So you're not alone.
Did
But
they
then-
pinpoint why? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they pinpoint why.
Yeah, it's 60%. You said.
Yes,
Why did
they didn't put an analysis.
Yeah.
Take your guess. What do you think? You have Gen Z. Let's not put you on the spot. Anybody Gen Z? Yes. I will not identify your name. What do you think? Pride, maybe?
No, in my case, is their spouses.
Okay, so it's the infusion of different character from another family or from another person bred by another family, not necessarily holding your value. That's a big thing because the influence is also so bad. But it is a must that, number one, two things to be practiced every day: gratitude. Thank God that you're still alive. This, take the positive side and forget about, or maybe just pray about the ingratitude and offer them. That's the wisdom of a good saint. Because your passion becomes united with Jesus. Do I sound like like an evangelist? But these are the wisdom of things, and I'm sure you. Please share your ideas, because that's people are suffering from that. You have the second question.
Second question.
Believe me, also, if you reach out to somebody, you will find a friend, but you have to pray for it. You really have to pray for it. Who are good friends? Oh, Saint Joseph. I just went to, and if you get a chance, go to Spain, go to Madrid, and take a trip to Avila. Avila is so nice. You still have the Avila. You still have the convent where Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross would converse. They would have ecstasy. Well, in one of the relics, those displayed in the convent of the Incarnation that she founded, there's the statue of Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph is a silent friend. Turns out by tradition that whenever Saint Teresa of Avila, because she would always go out to Salamanca, which is 3 hours, and by carriage to Valladolid, which is about 2 hours. When he comes back home, so tired, he goes to Saint Joseph because she has a very deep devotion to Saint Joseph. She tells all her petitions with Saint Joseph would always be answered. Sometimes it takes 6 years. But go back to Saint Joseph, the statue. He calls it Saint Joseph the talker or the parlero. Because what Saint Joseph would do is when Saint Teresa would go out from the convent, when he comes back, Saint Joseph would tell him everything that happened in the convent, the details. But what I'm trying to say is this: quietly be friend with Saint Joseph, and he's notorious to be a friend, because imagine there's a book, also a apocryphal book, like a book that is not really okay, whatever it is. So no, it's yeah. So there's a moment that to reflect that Saint Joseph quietly would observe the Virgin Mary talking to Jesus, and the room would lit up. But they're friends, because he has a different privilege than the Virgin Mary, of course. But Saint Joseph is the master of granting many different things. I have an assignment actually for my wife, and I read the note of putting the statue upside down. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm just going to do a novena to Saint Joseph. The reason why Saint Joseph is there, I'll show you. Saint Joseph is actually sitting in the doorstep. When I went to Wisconsin, if you have not been to Our Lady of Good Hope, where EWTN, no, EWTN, no, it's
No, it's the champion, Wisconsin.
yes, but there's a station, Relevant Radio. Father Rocky.
Yeah,
So I said,
near
Father Rock-
Green Bay.
Near
Near
champion,
Green Bay,
champion,
right?
near Green Bay. So he told us, what's Saint Joseph with a crown? I said, well, there's a story for that. Saint Joseph, when he came in, there was some financial difficulty in the Relevant Radio, and he would say, the bishop of that diocese would say, put Saint Joseph at the entry of the of Relevant Radio and say a devotion. Well, the financial problem solved. Another financial problem came in. He said, well, let's put a crown of Saint Joseph like this guy. You'll never see Saint Joseph with a crown. Another problem came up. And then another financial problem came up. So he put him in a pedestal. So that's where the pedestal of Saint Joseph. So if you have doubts about Saint Joseph devotion, think about that. Anything else?
Oh, he has a crown too. You put one
I
on.
always crown Saint Joseph.
When talking about sugars, I just
Yeah.
wonder how honey plays into it. Like, can you have too much honey? Does that also have any of the properties?
So honey is my favorite form of sugar.
Mhm.
Why? Because it's not just honey. It's not just sugar. It's polyphenol. As long as it's a good honey, not from adulterated with fungus. It's usually homebred, low state bred. Because honey in itself has a high index of sweetness, because you don't need the whole honey, like a teaspoon compared to one sugar. I noticed that if you put lemonade and just drop a little bit, it doesn't give you, the taste is different. It's more savory. Maple syrup, for example, there are a lot of sucrose there because that's from the sap from this. So in my opinion, no, don't take it from me if you find something else, but honey is more favorable form of sugar.
Will that spike your glucose? Like,
Not much because the index of glucose glycemic index of honey is lower. Maybe I should have to verify it more. Another source. Cookie, do you have any questions?
I had written something here on that page. So you said better to steam the sweet potato and then refrigerate it because it becomes.
Yes.
So if you're cooking it and baking it in the oven with something slow that you're baking, then take it out. Don't eat it that night. Eat it the next day.
Yes, because there's such thing as complex sugar transformation of these carbohydrates. It becomes a complex carbohydrates, and even if you reheat it, it still retains the complex carbohydrate consistency. The importance of the concept of complex carbohydrates is that it becomes less digestible, so that as it enters the body, it doesn't produce the spike of glucose. Yeah, because it still has more fiber compared to the Kasha.
I believe you said that with rice also.
Yes, rice and pasta, the same.
Pasta, the same. Thank you.
Eat it the next day.
What do you have, Kasha?
So the potatoes, do we eat them cold?
Which one?
Heated potatoes, we eat them
Sweet
cold?
potato.
Sweet potatoes.
Cold. You eat cold?
Really?
no, she's asking, should she?
Should she?
Sushi.
If you have a choice of carbohydrates, I would use the least rice, pasta, bread, and even if you say sourdough bread, the sourdough bread is still a refined carbohydrates. Only it's prepared with bacteria, but it's still refined carbohydrates. So, for example, if you're struggling with hemoglobin A1C or your blood sugar or your visceral fat, for example, this one here, don't doubt. Just take away those things, and it will just revert on itself.
But you reheat the sweet potato.
You can if you want. It doesn't change.
I remember one time you said if you're going to have fruit, don't have it the first thing in the morning. Have some other kinds of protein.
I definitely recommend that, because first thing in the morning you already have you need a good deposit of good fibrous food, and good caloric load, protein, good oil, avocado, eggs, for example,
Hard-boiled eggs.
chia seed, hard-boiled eggs. What else do you have? Chia seed that I already soaked the night previous, and then I make a smoothie. And don't forget your yogurt. The key of the health is really the bacteria, the yogurt. 4 species: Lactobacillus gasseri, which we make it here, Rotary, and also Subtilis, which I have not made. Gasseri is also a different property. Lactobacillus gasseri is also related to joint pains. The combination of Lactobacillus gasseri and Rotary had been proven to improve the pain index of particular joint problems, degenerative joint disease or osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. How beautiful is that? You can grow it in your intestine, replenish it, and you live a good life.
How do you spell that?
Which one?
B, the one that begins with a B.
Oh, gasseri?
No, Rotary and Glycerin, I know.
Subtilis.
Yes.
Subtilis. Well, there's the sugar right there. Oh my. To you. It's her birthday too.
Happy birthday to you.
Hey Arturo, look.
Happy birthday, dear doctor.
We're having a.
Birthday to you.
Where's the okay? So we're having we have a dispensation. First in line to get the cake would be Dr. Titus.
Well, it's low in sugar.
Anyway, well, thank you very much. We don't want to. So for our audience from somewhere, Arturo, let's chica chica ta Arturo. Les, thank you very much. Say hello to Gus, and we're going to say goodbye for everybody, right? And we will end the stream. Have a good day, everybody.